I feel like this is kind of starting to kind of move that way as well, right? Where we have elements of so many different things in this one image that the longer you look at it, the more you notice. Which I love stuff like that, right? Where at first you're just like, oh, there's a sleeping ogre, and then you're like, but there's people crawling on him, and he's holding a shark for some reason, and why is there a boat out there? And all of a sudden, it's like it's painting this really interesting image and an entire story in that image, just because there's so many kind of mismatched elements that as you notice each of them, the story
Hmm.
gets more robust.
Yeah. I mean, it really could be something out of One Piece, because you did have like those giants
Hmm.
on that island. If anybody's ever seen the show, so I don't know if it wasn't an intended thing, honestly. But I have seen the show, so who knows? Maybe there's a bit of a subliminal kind of thing happening here, right?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because like we said, like are these guys kind of pirate-esque, right? Like were they, obviously they seem to have come off some sort of ship that is, out waiting for them to return. So is this what they do? They go to places and, search for treasure, and this is maybe the first time they've ever found one on an ogre. And that just changed up how they would go about retrieving it.
Right. I mean, if it's realistically, if we even want to think of it like a One Piece like story, like they could have been, this could be one of many adventures they've been on. And
Hmm.
so this particular adventure, they must find this particular treasure, to, help the princess who, will only be able to regain their title if they get this treasure back, which was taken by the ogre, but then we find out that or this giant or whatever this thing is. And then we find out that the giant was actually, friends with, like that there's like,
Yeah, it was his
so
treasure first, and like,
yeah, like that the princess has been like, maybe tricked them, and they're going to find out that this is really the ogre's like, opportunity to find his family, like there's all these possibilities, right? Like obviously we're making something that's very, in some ways it's I wouldn't say it's superficial, but it's just, um, scratching the surface of what the
yeah,
story could be. And then, yeah, the thing that I always like to do when it comes to, when you do something like this is to ask questions, right? You just ask questions. You're like, why are they here? Like, why is the ogre sleeping? Like all the things that we kind of started to do.
yeah.
Why is there a dead shark there? Right? All of that stuff. And then, you start to come up with answers for it. What if it's this? What if it's that? And then finally something develops that you can create to become like a cohesive
Hmm.
story that at least resonates with you, that you like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even we had mentioned that, like, okay, so let's say this treasure has, the pieces of gold and this and that in it, but there's that one real thing that this is about. And like, that princess level of there's something in there that she needs in order to regain her kingdom or something like that, that kind of fills in that layer of what was that additional thing within the treasure that was more than just the pieces of gold that they managed to get out. That's what was still left in the treasure box, was that last thing that they needed to get in order to complete this quest. And that was when our giant ogre friend decided to wake up.
Yeah, exactly. And then of course, um, the world that they inhabit, like, is this, a very fantastical time, or is it based a little bit more in history? Obviously there's fantastical elements to it, but, you know,
Mhm.
there could be, like a little bit of, Gulliver's Travel in here, or, like, are they the small people, or is the giant, like all these things that um, we don't actually know, uh, the answer to, right? So you just keep on asking yourself questions. The other thing I was thinking too is like, we did draw a Twitch with the underwater, those underwater like.
Yep.
So is this in that same world, right?
Well, that's actually, I was thinking that I'm like, are we starting to, but I was thinking the same, like, what if they came out of the water? And what if the shark was part of that? The ogre went down, swam down, stole their treasure, and took a shark for a snack for later and came up to the surface and they're coming to get their treasure back, to take back down underwater, right? Like that, it could definitely be in that same world for sure.
And then there could be like a whole Little Mermaid element to it. What if to be able to be above water, they have like a 24-hour potion that they take, or some kind of
Yeah.
liquid elixir they take that allows them to have a humanoid form to breathe above the surface. But it's going to run out soon, and so that's part of it too. Like they're on this time crunch that
Yeah.
if they don't get the treasure and if they don't get back in time, everything, right? So you have multiple things happening at the same time. What are the rules here? If they stay, like the Little Mermaid, if they stay on land too long, do they stay human, like, or
Forever.
humanoid,
Yeah.
right? Like we don't know what the whole story of this is, right? Do they actually, now that I'm thinking about it, do they have somewhat uh like mer type features that they're like, like the
Mhm.
ears are just a slightly little pointy?
Yeah.
Do they have like is the one wearing like a bit of like a shell necklace or something? They didn't, like, yeah, they're parts of their this journey where they've adapted to what humans wear, what they perceive humans to wear, but then they
Mhm.
also keep some of the things that they that are part of their environment, that they're part of their culture, right? So like necklaces and things that they can trade. Somebody go,
Yeah.
oh, where did you get that? That's like a rare jewel, and they're all over the place where I'm come from,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and I mean, even to that point, we assume these three are a team. What if they're not? What if one of them came from the underwater kingdom, one of them came off the ship, one of them came from the shore, and all of them are trying to get this treasure for their own various purposes. And then the ogre starts to wake up and suddenly they have to kind of work together because if he wakes up, they're all toast. But they could have come from some of the various places we've established and ended up here because there's something in that treasure chest that they all want for some reason.
Right.
Because if you look at them, they kind of do look like, one of them looks like he's almost got like an Indiana Jones hat on, right? And then one of them's got
Mm,
kind of the hair blown back that maybe he's the underwater guy. And, so maybe there is something to the fact that it was like almost like a treasure hunt, right? Like who can get it
right.
first, not realizing that the ogre was going to be there with his shark snack.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's so many possibilities. That's the thing about all this, where we're like, I don't know. Uh, and really, like, I think this is what I think. When we decide to collect this stuff, I think you need to write these stories. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been taking notes, but
I have been. I've got every time we do this, I have my little kind of like where we ended up with it. Because honestly, this is, the door is great and it's methodical and it's very specific and we're building something, to the end. These sessions are great fun just because there is no, like we're just rifing off like all kinds of random things and that's fine. Like that's the whole point is that there isn't, a definitive answer or an end result. It's just these total imagination, like what comes out of our brains and comes out on the paper. And it's really fun to do. So if you're watching and you've never tried just doing this, it's a great activity to like not put any rules on yourself, just create something and let your brain go wild.
yeah. Well, it's the imagination factory, right?
Exactly. This is what we do.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it. I mean, the fun about this is that, as you said, there's you can just your creativity is at its purest. Um, and then as soon as you start making decisions as to like what this world is, that's a lot of fun, but also, like, you're now kind of regimenting yourself. You're now giving yourself
Yeah.
structure and And there is something very gratifying with that as well. But I do find that like, yeah, when you can like create something and it's like, okay, it's done. We let's move on to the next thing. Um, that you have a lot. There's just a lot of energy that you're putting into it and then leaving it, right? But also sometimes something you create something you're like, ooh, I want to structure it. I want to see what
Yeah, I
this
want
is
to go
like.
deeper into the story. And generally, that's kind of where you end up. You do this for a while, you let yourself go absolutely anywhere, and then you start to bring it back into some structure. And then you can really, because you have let yourself go anywhere, you can refine it, right? You can be like, well, now that I've tested all these different parts, this was my favorite, let's go deeper. And you sometimes end up better for it, right? Because you've let, you've gotten those wild ideas out there, and what you end up with is usually something that you can really work with. But this is often harder than it looks to just sit there and be like, no rules, give me an idea, where are we going? That can be, it takes practice to be able to do that, and get somewhere that isn't a total, like, brick wall that you're like, well, now I'm not sure what to do with that. So it's fun, but it's also hard.
Yeah, I would with this one in particular, I feel like there's just so many possibilities to it that um I don't know. Right now, I'm not sure which direction I would want to go in. Like, I don't know if I'd want to make it where they're all connected, or is
Mhm.
there some kind of competition between the three of them, or are they uh, connected to the underwater kingdom we created? Is this like I just don't know where I'd want to go. I kind of like the idea of that there is some kind of not necessarily that they're all the same, like from the same underwater kingdom, but that there's some kind of like a time limit, and there's some kind of reason why that they have to a time limit that's imminent for them, and then a time limit that's imminent for something else. I like that idea because I
Mhm.
think that creates an interesting kind of uh just for the
It
reader.
raises the stakes,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's not just, "Ooh, we wanna get this treasure, but, oh, the ogre wakes up, we'll come back another day." It's, "No, we have to get this treasure
Yes.
because
Yeah.
there's a reason that we can't just, 'Oh, no, he's waking up, run.'" It's like, "No, we either have to bonk him on the head or, get this treasure and make it back to the boat, because if we don't get it, something is going to happen." And anytime you raise the stakes, it gets just that much more interesting, because otherwise you'd be like, "Woof, that ogre looks like he's waking up. All right, well, see you later. We'll try again next week." So,
Well, let's add a whole new wrinkle. What if the ogre is a friend, but they very much differ in the direction to go. And so now, like,
mm,
they don't want to hurt the ogre because, that's their buddy, but they also realize the ogre's making a mistake like maybe the ogre, again, going back to your premise of like, well, they're different places and they're
yeah.
all kind of like competing. Well, it could be the ogre is a fourth one. They all like each other. They've all kind of realized that it's a race for every one of them has a different reason to get this treasure. Or maybe the treasure itself is just like a part of the race. So to get, maybe it's like who's the first person to get treasure to princess actually gets the next clue to the next part of the race. And so they don't want to necessarily hurt each other, but at the same time, they're very competitive and therefore they'll do what they need to do to win. And if it means like, well, right now the ogre is the one that is the most dangerous. So let's work together here. But then of course they're going to double cross each other. Right. So it could be a whole thing with that too.
Well, yeah, that could be it. Like, the ogre was left to guard the treasure. They all agreed, and then something happened, and the stakes changed, and they were like, "Well, we got to get this off of him because he's slow. He's never going to make it back in time, etc." They don't want to hurt him, but they also don't want to include him. So it's, yeah, there's so many ways we could go with these four characters because now that the ogre has kind of, even though in the scene he's very much laying down and not part of it, he is sort of working his way into a little bit more personality versus just, the scary ogre who likes to eat sharks for some reason. He's now possibly part of this treasure hunt.
And I just thought of another possibility. The ogre wasn't actually, the ogre was a kid and took some kind of potion that turned it into an ogre, right? So,
Ooh.
like, there you go. So now it's like, it's got to wear off at some point, and the shark could be like, it was, going to attack the kid, and then the kid turned into the ogre right in the middle of the water, and like whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, and it could, to add to that, it could be that whatever the actual potion that will change him back is in that treasure chest, but he doesn't want to change back. He's an ogre now, right? He went from being
Yeah,
a little kid to an ogre. So these guys are like, we got to get this off of him. We got to get, we got to get the potion out of there, out of the treasure chest before it's too late and he stays an ogre forever. But we can't wake him up because if he knows we're doing it, he's going to hit us with the shark because he
right.
wants to remain an ogre, So,
Yeah,
oh
there's a
man.
lot of fun with this for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, this was just sort of that one word, treasure. And this is where we've gotten to with our sleeping ogre who's potentially a child who has grown big, holding a shark that maybe he got from the water. And then we've got a boat and we've got our three treasure seekers. We don't know if they're friends or foes or how it works out, but there's some kind of a timed reason that the treasure needs to be obtained. And so the stakes have been raised to get it to wherever it needs to go.
Yeah, yeah. There's, I mean, and who knows? We can think of all different things, right? As you start to develop the story, and
Mhm.
really, what is it that's most interesting, and then that I would want to draw, that you would want to write, right? Like that's
Yeah,
kind of the thing that we'd have to think about a bit more in regards to um the story. Like, we don't want to do something that is too much like One Piece, right? You'd want to
no,
make it a little less derivative from that, and a little bit more original, right? So
exactly.
um there's all different possibilities that you just have to kind of flesh out, and then decide what you enjoy the most, and then go from there, right?
Exactly. And the good and bad of so many possibilities is sometimes with so many possibilities, it can be hard to decide on one, right? Because it's like, but what if, and you end up just growing and growing and growing. And then at some point, you then have to be like, and we need to bring it back because
Right.
it has to come back to a single idea. But we're not at that point yet, right? We're still at that sort of, it could be anything.
Mhm.
And we're starting to see elements of things in it and the story's starting to come out of it, but we haven't had to lock ourselves in, which is fun. So, yeah.
Exactly. Like, and that's why this is the most fun part of it in some ways, right? Where
Yeah.
anything is possible, and you're just letting your flag fly, and letting
Yeah.
all different possibilities exist for this. And then once you um start to figure things out, then hopefully it's still interesting enough for you that you didn't paint yourself into a corner, and you're like,
Yes.
"Oh, I like this originally, but now we've done it this way, and I'm really not liking it," right? So it's hard to pivot sometimes. You always have to kind of be okay with letting go of some of the work you've done. But that's why, again, doing this, and doing, the more you do this, the more practice you get, and the more I think you'll very quickly kind of figure out what the rules are, and what the story could be, so that you do create a story that I think is going to be a little bit more intriguing for you all the way through, right?
Exactly. You want to keep the fun in it as much as you can because we've all been there where, the start of a project, it's fresh, it's new, it's exciting. There's so many possibilities. And then after you've been working on it for a while, it's like, okay, more of this, right? So you have to find ways to retain what made it exciting in the first place for both yourself and then for the end user, the reader, to still feel that excitement and the passion all the way, not just like this was a fun idea. You can tell that they really got bored of it. So yeah, it's fun to do as you have to figure out how to retain the fun.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we can probably, like, I think I've gotten this to a good point where I feel like I like the composition. I think it's got a nice flow to it. There's a world here,
Yeah,
that I can, like, uh, keep on adding little cool details with. I feel like I got the characters, the shapes figured out somewhat. So, um, like from if we decide to keep on working on this from now, I think that it would be like just refining it, right? Figuring out like what these characters look like more specifically,
yeah,
making sure that everything works together once I start getting to the more refined details of this. Like the one thing I can say right now, one thing is the treasure looks a little bit, it's hard to see that there's a treasure test.
right,
So, like that would require almost a, either me to change this a bit so that we can see it a little bit more clearly, or to have another panel where we can see that there's a treasure chest and therefore that it's obscured a little bit isn't a big deal. So it's something
right.
we'll think about
Yep.
for next time, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, that was fun. That was definitely a our brains went all over the place session, which we love to do. So thank you for everyone that joined us, everyone that asked questions and commented and participated. We love it. Make sure you're subscribed. Check out the door as well if you want to watch our longer form series we talked about a bit. And we will be back live again next week. And this will be cut up into, smaller videos and uploaded on our channel too. So
Mm.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Don't forget to mention this to your friends so that they can watch
Yes.
it.
If you enjoyed it, tell other people to watch us. Take care. Thanks for joining us.